We are talking about hyper-attached or insecurely attached dogs who resource guard their people, not for the more traditional reasons like the person provides affection and food, but because their sense of security, their sense of safety and well-being is tied up in their ability to access that person. And that's a different beast in my experience than a dog who is resource guarding in a more straightforward and traditional way. So the kiddos who are hyper attached often have chronically dysregulated nervous systems. Another way of putting that is that they may experience toxic levels of stress as their baseline. For those dogs, oftentimes behavior medication is very helpful in addressing the concerns. And of course, behavior medication is meant to be used in tandem with behavior therapy. So what does behavior therapy look like in these cases? So we are working to reduce physiological distress in response to typical everyday triggers. We are looking to increase the ability of the dog to regulate their own arousal. We are looking to increase the dog's ability to bounce back from stressors, their resilience. We're also looking to increase their independence and to increase their confidence. Confidence being their belief in their ability to navigate the situation successfully. And I sometimes find that when we address the hyperattachment, the insecure attachment in that way, sometimes we don't even have to do the more traditional resource guarding setups where we're desensitizing and counter conditioning and teaching alternative behaviors. In these dogs, I see that sometimes just addressing the hyperattachment resolves the resource guarding issue, although certainly not always. So for hyperattachment specifically, I work on 3 big games: relax on a mat, capturing calm behavior, and nose work. And I have videos talking about how I teach relax on a mat. I teach it through shaping. I teach it in a very generalized way, and there is no implied stay. I also combine it with a capturing, calm, lowering food arousal exercise, and that gets us true relaxation on the mat, but it is also capturing and reinforcing moments where the dog is laying down relaxed. Both of these activities could be referred to as no-follow activities. They are activities where at the end of the day, we are reinforcing the dog for not following us around the house, which is a big deal with hyperattachment. In fact, one issue that I often see in these cases is that if the dog does not have some alone time during the day, they are often getting very disrupted, broken sleep because they're getting up and following the human every time there's a sound or every time the person moves. And so they're not getting deep quality sleep during the day. And sleep deprivation makes everything worse. And then the nose work. Nose work is huge in building confidence, right? And so we get the dog moving around, we get them seeking, we increase their optimism. Optimism has been shown to increase in dogs that do nose work 2 to 3 times a week. And then we can take that nose work into different situations and give the dog the confidence to handle a novel situation. So nose work, I find, is incredibly helpful in these cases. To work on resilience and self-regulation, I love playing on-off switch games. We have a ton of videos on on-off switch games. I think actually we have a whole collection on them. But essentially you're taking traditional games like fetch, tug, flirt, pull, or chase, and you're pairing them with calming. So fetch, the dog brings the ball back, they're chasing, they're coming up, and then you do a scatter feed. They eat, they lower their head below their body, they're sniffing, all of that brings them down, and then you throw the ball and they come up, and then you toss the treats and they come back down. Flirt, pull, same thing, they're chasing it around, then you do the scatter. And so we're teaching them to come up and back down through games. And then when I'm doing any of my enrichment activities, which might be on-off switch, or I really like to focus on calming enrichment too, so sniffing, licking, and chewing activities. And I also like to look at what does my dog specifically tell me they need. So if they like to chew a lot, we're looking for a lot of chews. If they're shredders, I'm looking for lots of shredding opportunities. And as I'm doing this, I'm not just throwing out the toy or the game and leaving them to it. I'm carefully monitoring the relationship between my dog's skill level and the challenge at hand. And I'm systematically increasing the challenge as my dog's skill level increases. And this is how we build something called learned industriousness. I often think of learned industriousness as like a frustration tolerance. We're teaching the dog to stick with something and to move through the hard piece. But if we get the challenge and skill inappropriately matched, we're going to end up with a dog who's frustrated or bored. So that match is really important, but it's how we continue to build that confidence, that resilience, that self-regulation, and that learned industriousness. Another huge piece that I find very, very helpful and also very cool in these situations is using pattern games. We've got a whole folder on pattern games, including the intersection that we see between pattern games and attachment theory. And here we are talking about resource guarding and attachment theory, so you can see how this is relevant. So I have some videos with some interesting thoughts, I think, about pattern games and attachment theory, and I think they can play a huge role here, where we're also looking at insecure attachment. So the thing with attachment theory is that the attachment figure serves a couple of purposes. And one is that they are a secure base for the learner. So the learner is able to strike out and explore and be curious because they have a safe base to return to. So they strike out and explore and they come back to safety, and they strike out and explore and they come back to safety. And that's a piece of secure attachment. That's also what pattern games can provide for us. the 1, 2, 3 pattern game, for example. As you're playing this game, you're counting 1, 2, 3, give the dog a treat. 1, 2, 3, give a dog a treat. If you're not familiar, what the person is doing is creating predictability in an unpredictable situation. So we've got, we're out at the park and there's a lot going on, and I'm giving my dog this 1, 2, 3 treat is going to continue to happen, so you can process what's happening around you. And what that often ends up looking like is the dog is looking around on 1 and 2, and then they come back to safety for 3, and then 1 and 2, and then they come back to safety for 3. And they're learning to modulate or regulate themselves with the help of an external nervous system, right? Through that attachment lens. Sometimes I find this issue of hyperattachment and resource guarding popping up in dogs who have come from a harder situation and they have latched on to their person, right? They were not making this up. Their situation really was terrifying and unsafe. And now they have this person, and now maybe they are warm and fed and, inside for the first time, things like this. And this doesn't necessarily mean like abuse or neglect or anything like that, which is a whole different video. But if the dog's perception is that things are really scary and unsafe and they don't have a safe person, and then they get a safe person and they're holding on, right? So I often see with those dogs that continuing to build relationships can be really helpful. So I'll use treat retreat and playground games to build confidence with other people. If the dog is into other dogs and I can use social facilitation, that's incredible. Play can be incredibly therapeutic. So I love to incorporate play in building those social relationships, whether that's dog-dog or dog-human. Amy Cook's The Play Way is very helpful here. And then, oh my God, I can't believe I'm mentioning this last, but we need to focus on agency, right? The dog needs to believe that their behavior impacts their environment. And one of the key ways that I see agency being effective in this realm of dog-dog work is one, so we can offer choice. Offering choice is huge, but also being able to communicate. So does your dog have a way to ask for affection? Do they have a way to say, I need to go outside? Do they have a way to say, I'm hungry? Do they have a way to say, I'm scared? And can you, the human, hear that, interpret that, and then respond? And the thing about agency is you don't even have to respond like in the way that they want you to, right? So if my dog comes up and is asking for affection, I can say no, not right now, but my dog has still been able to communicate their need and get a response. Their behavior did impact the environment. I didn't just sit there and like ignore them and not know what they meant, right? Consent testing is a huge, huge, huge piece of this. Yes, even from the secure attachment figure. Consent testing is a huge way to build agency and confidence. And so I can make a separate video on that if someone's not familiar with the consent testing protocol. So we've got agency, we've got building confidence, we've got increasing self-regulation, we've got increasing resilience, we've got building social bonds and support, we've got creating predictability and creating that ebb and flow that we want to see in attachment theory. We've got calming enrichment. We've got no-follow behaviors. And I'm a big fan of keeping things easy. So to be honest, these exercises are exercises that I do with a lot of my clients, but sometimes for different reasons. But there aren't many dogs who wouldn't benefit from building some resilience, some self-regulation, some confidence, right? These things aren't hurting anyone. So this is the longest video I've ever made on TikTok. Let me know what questions you have. I'm so excited to keep talking about this.